Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to give you another seedling update, but I wanted to address a couple questions that I've been getting about the starting station itself and what shelving unit this is. So this is a Husky brand 1000 series shelf. It has these 3-foot length shelves with a wire grate. It comes originally with 4 of these long shelves, and we purchased one additional one so we could extend our growing space. You can kind of see on the side here, it's very modular in the sense that you can put it in any kind of slot here to change the height of your shelving units. We also purchased these side shelves, which come from the company as well in a 2-pack. This allows us just to have the extended growing space because our lights are a 4-foot light. So having the additional space is really handy. My only complaint is they don't line up. So there's quite a height difference in between the two, even when they are on the same kind of level. So that was kind of annoying, but it's not the end of the world for that. It's really great for our light systems themselves because the lights come with these chain and we just kind of wrap them around the wire, which is really, really handy. And like I mentioned, it's a 4-foot light, so it spreads across the whole entire length. It would be nice if we had a double light that was a little bit wider, because definitely my seedlings in the center get the most light while the ones on the ends don't get as much. But I'm always rotating these trays, and I find the white wall behind kind of reflects the light a little bit, so that's always handy as well. So the shelving unit itself is from Home Depot, and then the lighting units, they're from Lowe's. So hopefully that answers a couple questions. Everything is just hooked up to a power bar that we have on the side here with a zip tie, so it kind of shows that. But these units themselves, they can technically connect. So you can see here, you can connect them all together if you have limited power plugins, I guess. But yeah, that's more or less everything. And let's show you how all the seedlings are doing. So I figured I could take them all out onto my table so I could give you a closer look at everything, just because I found the last video kind of just briefed over things and you couldn't exactly see how everything was doing. So here at the front, I have a bunch of zinnias that I started. I probably could have waited for these zinnias, but they did say you could start this variety 8 weeks in advance, but I'm finding that they are getting kind of tall and leggy. A couple of them also did not germinate, which I thought was kind of interesting because usually I have a really good luck with zinnias. But those are the candy cane varieties, the State Fair, and then these salmon zinnias. So that's the front section. I also did a second sowing of kale because we did lose some of our kale that I forgot to cover outside in pots. So we have the Red Russian as well as the Dutch curled Scotch. I have this verbena, and one of my cells is kind of dying off. I think it's just, as you can see, way too clustered. These were cold stratified save seeds, and I didn't realize that they would do so well. And I put so many in the container that they kind of feel and look like moss. These are my salvia, which are obviously not doing very well. I have one cell germinated here, and to be honest, I think one of these is verbena and one of them is the salvia. So that was kind of a flop. And speaking of flop, my chard. I suck at chard. So if you guys have any tips, I think I might just try them outside as opposed to in a seed starting cell, just because they always get super leggy, fall over, and they just don't do so well. Next up, we have this mixed tray. These were the tomatoes you saw in the last video that hadn't been up potted. So they're a tumbler variety as well. Switch this around. Tumblers as well as some sun golds. So they're doing really well. This definitely is not going to be their last home they're in because they're getting nice and tall. I haven't done any kind of pruning on them. They still have their true leaves at the bottom, and that's what's going on with them. I do also have one cell of assorted grass here and then 2 insane cups of them. You can see the root systems are getting nice and big. I don't recommend starting your ornamental grasses indoors because they take up a lot of space and they're quite large. I think you can direct sow them just fine and don't waste your time with the space. I also have some, what are these? Oh, caldenias. So those guys are also getting quite big. I recommend you direct sowing them too, but I wanted to see how they did in a pot. I also have some lavender that hasn't sprouted quite yet. This is my second chance at trying lavender. I cold stratified it to see if it made a difference. And if this doesn't work, I'm going to the greenhouse and I'm going to be buying lavender. I also have some dianthus just here chilling. These were just some extra pots that did not fit in where I have the majority of the other ones. This guy, he's not doing so well. Next up, we have this tray that I started not terribly long ago. So we have some bell peppers here that are just starting to get their sets of true leaves. We have a hot mix. This is one of those like multi-packs, so I'm not sure what varieties we're gonna get, but we're hoping for these little yellow ones that we got last year that were really good out of the package. And then we have some jalapeno. As you can see, not all of the germination works, so I have a couple cells that are completely empty, and then some that of course both germinated. So I'll probably end up splitting these once they get another set of true leaves on them. I'll put them up to the bigger pots and they can live in there until we plant them out in early May. We also have some Coleus here, Calaris, however you want to pronounce it. It's nice and green, but this is like kind of a rainbow mix, so I'm really excited to see these start getting their color. You can see I kind of sewed them a little differently per cell. Some are really heavy apparently versus others, but that's okay. I'll be able to put them in just in this like clump and they'll spread from there. These are an experiment of Gomphrena, so I'm really excited about them. Excuse this little fuzzy spot. But these guys were actually from a bouquet from Sun Harvest, and you can kind of see here there's like a shell of one of them. But I actually had dried the flowers and I figured let's try them and plant them. And you can see a bunch have sprouted. So really, really excited about that to see if they go into a larger seedling. And I will be able to plant them out into my garden because it would be really cool to have a bouquet and then have a multifunctional seed saving adventure and then a plant my own. Next up, we have a bunch of flowers here. So we have some Sweet William. We have a variety of different carnations. We have petunias, and then we have some sage. I just up-potted these. They were in cell trays last time we checked out the video together, and now they are just doing their thing. I did notice a bunch of my carnations are kind of curling their leaves. So I did give these guys a water this morning because I noticed the soil was a little dry, and usually the curling leaves mean they're trying to retain some moisture. So they've had a good drink, so hopefully they'll bounce back in the next little bit. But I wanted to show you guys that they have been up potted. These guys were also hanging out in seed starting trays last time you guys checked in with us. So we have some red strawflower, we have some snapdragons, which are pretty densely sowed. I haven't pinched these or done anything with them, but I have a feeling they're going to be a little bit too close for comfort. We have some white strawflower, we have some celiosa, we have two kinds of aster. This is the Valkyrie mix, and then this one's just like a charm mix. So these guys have also been up potted since last time you saw us. They had a good drink this morning too, because likewise to the previous tray, they were looking a little bit dry. So they'll probably perk up in the next little bit, but for the most part, they're growing pretty steadily. You probably noticed this tray when I was showing you the shells. It's my Brassica tray, and a lot of them are really leggy. So I think I just didn't have my light close enough. The cabbage seems to be doing pretty great. It has really nice big leaves, and it's pretty compact and close to the soil. But all of my cauliflower, my broccoli, my Brussels sprouts, and definitely the kohlrabi over here are all really leggy. I remember this being an issue last year as well, so I might try to direct sow some of my brassicas outside with the warmer temperatures coming up. Still cool, but warmer for us compared to what they have been. But I'm going to try to harden these guys off in this coming week and hopefully get them into the cold frames to see if it makes a difference being outside in better soil and better sun. So you might be thinking, wow, your ranunculus haven't really done much since the last time we've seen them, but this is actually the second sowing. So there are a lot that are popping up again. It's hard to say what the germination rate of these guys are. I do 1 corm per cell, and for the majority, they are popping up. There's just a couple that are straggling along, so we haven't seen any kind of sign of life from them. But the very cool thing is my previous ranunculus are actually already in pots. So this is actually my first sowing of ranunculus. These guys just got up potted into these bigger guys. They are going through a little bit of transplant shock, so there's a couple curling leaves just from the moisture, as well as a little bit of legginess, because as you can see, they're kind of off my shelf, so they don't have the direct light, but these guys will be able to go outside on my deck soon, so they will start getting the actual sun. Then I also sowed these guys here the same time I just did those previous cells, so you can see that they're popping up already. Ranunculus are things that I'm trying for the first time this year, so a lot of it is trial and error, and we'll see how things go. I almost forgot, I also have this tray going, so these guys are second sowing, and those are the originals. So these 2 trays I'm going to show you together. At the front here, I have a couple Swiss chard that seem to be doing okay. They're just kind of tilted and leggy a little bit. So again, not 100% sure how best to grow Swiss chard, but for the most part, these guys have big leaves and they're doing fairly well into their little pots here. Then I have all of my peppers. And if you checked out my pepper pinching video, you would have seen that I've already pinched them back. And if you look closely, they're starting to bushel out. So I think pinching peppers is definitely really beneficial, especially if you want a wider kind of stockier plant, like especially show you this guy. You can kind of see the difference already. It forced all of the sprouts to go out on the sides instead of continuously getting tall. So you can see the difference that pinching makes to my peppers. I did want to show you that not everything is perfect. These leaves on this specific pepper plant aren't doing entirely the best. They kind of have this bumpy texture and some of the leaves are rather dull looking. I've been checking for bugs and making sure that there's nothing of that sort. So I think it's a nutrient issue. So I'm definitely going to look into making sure I do some waterborne fertilizer for these guys because it's still going to be another about month that they go out into the garden. Some of them are looking really good and really lush, but I wanted to show you not everything is obviously perfect in my garden, and this is a realistic tour. So keep that in mind if you are feeling discouraged about your own sprouts. So I'm also going to do these together because they're the exact same flowers. They just are in 2 different trays. So I have my pansies here at the front. I have some chamomile as well, and then I have my foxglove. Foxglove and pansies are cold tolerant, so they're going to be going out in the next month or so, and I still have to look up the chamomile and see what it survives because we are ready to go for everything in these trays. These were some of my first flowers I did, and they're definitely some of my strongest flowers. So next up is this tray here. Columbine is doing super crazy. It is so tall and so, I guess, bushy almost. So you can see there, they're coming in like wildflowers, it seems. So I'm really, really excited about these because last year I tried to grow them and I completely failed. So really happy that everyone is doing well here. We also have some Shasta Daisy coming through. They're doing pretty well as well. The root systems are looking really nice, but not completely to the bottom, so they can definitely live in these pots for a little bit longer. And then we just have some more dianthus on the side here, which is kind of in a couple places. So as mentioned, I have dianthus in a couple places. That was just due to room. They're kind of just spread all over. And then these are my purple and my pink straw flowers. They are insane. They also have root systems that are to the bottom. So definitely am looking forward to when these guys are able to go outside. I'll probably be potting these, so I'll try to start hardening them off in the next couple weeks or so. But I believe I have to wait a little bit for them to go outside because I don't think they entirely like the cool weather. So they're kind of getting a little impatient, and so am I. I can definitely recommend when the straw flowers say that you can start them 12 weeks early. I would go closer to an 8-week window because these guys have gotten quite large, where the other straw flowers that you guys saw before are not quite as large, and I did those ones in the 8-week window. So this last tray on our shelf is our peas. So we have a couple rows of Marvel. These were our favorite from last year. They're nice and compact, which you can tell is really beneficial if you're starting peas inside. The next one we have are these Alaskan ones. One did not germinate, but they are really nice and tall. Their root system is already reaching the bottom. Now, peas don't like to be transplanted as much as other vegetables, but we're taking a chance with planting some outside direct and as well as starting some with hopes that we can get them going because we've had pretty good success with transplants in the past. These telephone ones are getting quite tall, already shooting out tendrils to latch onto something, so definitely getting them hardened off and outside soon. These Wando ones here, one did not germinate, but they're doing pretty well. One's a little bit more compact than the others. And then these snap peas are insane. They're probably the tallest. So I don't recommend starting snap peas indoors without any kind of trellis system because then you just have a pretty weak pea that flops over. He was a little bit sturdier when he was on the shelf because I had him against the wall, but right now you can tell he's not enjoying life. As mentioned, I'm not going to take down the tomatoes, but everybody is doing fairly well. Most of them received an up pot, and as you can see, they're touching my grow light. So I actually topped most of these guys to create a bushier kind of tomato, and then also too, some were already starting to give off buds, and I want the energy to go into the foliage and the stem, so I nicked those off. This is in our kitchen where we've moved some things over. So we have a lettuce that we've been snacking on. We have our onions, which I'm not sure about onions this year. They definitely need a haircut, but I'm not entirely happy with our onions. We also have some mixed herbs here, so some oregano, some more onions, some kale just randomly there that is kind of not doing so well because it needs to be up potted. And then some parsley that's also not doing well. And then we just have a window tomato because I'll pull one of these down, but we have two. These are just like a mixed herb bucket that we started. Some of them are pretty leggy because they're not under grow lights. They're just under a regular light, but we have been picking off a little bit of these guys. Not too much because we want them to get established, but we are hoping to have these indoor herbs. Also on the top shelf, I have my lilac experiment. So if you don't know what this is all about, definitely go check out my other videos because we're propagating it. And as you can see, we're starting to get some spread on the buds for the foliage, and for the most part, these guys are doing pretty well. This will be the last thing I chat about, so thank you for joining. But this is spinach we had in our kitchen, and as you can see, it's bolting. So I thought that was interesting that this spinach inside, we have some outside that is not bolting. It's pretty much toast because once it starts bolting, the flavor really changes, and it's just not going to really produce much more foliage. As you can see, it's really leggy as well. So too warm, not enough light, and this is probably going in the compost.